Oh my gosh, everybody get in here, get in here. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Let me see. Everybody in the chat. I got Cash, Chico, SW, Amy, Sakina, Lane. Is everybody's in the house today. I love it. I love it. I love it. Liz. Who else? Who else? TLC is me. Welcome, Queen Bella. All my beautiful members, guys. Precy, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see. Grandma Sherry, Wim. SW, welcome, guys. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Grandma, welcome, welcome. Everybody. Um, Shout out to everybody. Let me see. I'm trying to see, and I don't want to miss a lot of people. But shout out to all my beautiful members. Do the Right Thing is in the house as well. She's like, make sure that I gotta hook my phone before Rabbit starts. Hopefully she doesn't start anytime soon. You guys were already in the chat. Welcome, Priya. Welcome all my beautiful subs. And of course, my wonderful members. Everybody, make sure you're hitting the like button. Thank you. Okay. Bobby, everybody, Jen, everyone. Welcome, welcome. And Vic is here. Um, Angelina says, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. Okay. I'm gonna tell you guys my thoughts. Um, oh, all right. Let me do that because let me tell you what's going on with me. Okay, I watched it several times. Um, this documentary, and I want to start before we even start talking about it. This is part one and two. Yes, there is just so much to unpack. That I feel like it needs to be cut, right? I definitely feel like some parts are a little bit more repetitive on the other two episodes, but there's just so much information that I feel like it's a lot to unpack, right? I want to, first of all, I think it's so brave that these victims are coming out and they're speaking against what has happened to them with the IBLP. First of all, shout out to them, and I'm really glad to see that Amazon gave them a platform to do so. I'm happy to hear that. However, part of me is conflicted about a lot of things because uh, I see things twofold, right? Honestly, I'm not going to give you some. I'm just going to give you my perspective as a YouTube commentator. Okay, as somebody that is a person has lived experience in various areas, but also in life. Um, this is my review is not to necessarily preach against anything per se, because at the end of the day, I'm Catholic, okay? I believe in I have religious beliefs myself. Some of you guys may not have them. I respect you as long as you respect me, and that's okay. And that's how I feel. We're not here to convince or convert each other into something that is just not okay, right? I feel like as adults we can have respectful conversations about various topics. And this docuseries kind of really got to me because there was so much um, things that I kind of related to in my own upbringing. It's so hard not to do, especially having been raised Catholic and having had family members that are priests. So I very much I have Catholicism in my blood, if that makes sense. Although I'm a horrible Catholic because I don't go to mass every Sunday, right? Thank you. We are people, not our religion. And I would believe that too, right? So yes, and all survivors, I mean, shout out to them, and I hope that they continue to speak. But I want them, if they ever watch any of these YouTubers, which it sounds like some of these people do, note that this is about your story and your ownership to that. Like, you own that story. Coming from what I've seen in this docuseries, where everything is so about authority, right? Authority and taking, things from people. This is about them and their story. And as a blogger, as a YouTuber, I will never take away that experience from them. At the same time, keeping my own experiences from whatever, I have lived separate to that story, but it is very hard also as a person not to relate to certain upbringings, right? That was my biggest thing that I wanted to say. Um, I know. Well, oh, some of you in the chat. Okay, let's get started. All right. So again, this is if you're watching this live today, we're reviewing the Shiny Happy People, the Duggar Family Secrets, a Amazon Prime docu-series that was released like last week or so, last weekend on the 1st Thursday, about a week ago almost. And we're going to do this in, maybe I'll review the first and second part and give you some perspective, and then we'll go to the third and fourth. This is a very disturbing, it's a disturbing docuseries for sure, because it highlights different things that I think that are very much conversation pieces. So we have a four-part series that paints this vivid picture of the rise and fall of the Duggars, okay? And how they were like the poster children of this perfect fundamentalist Christian group, okay, called the IBLP. For those that don't know, the IBLP stands for basic, what is it? Basic institution and basic life principle. It's a tricky acronym. These acronyms are crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? Yes, yes. So I have here, these are the Duggars. These are, and some of you guys, I mean, let me tell you something, all right? And this, I'm being very honest. They had this show running from 2008 to 2015. They had about, I think, a little over 200 plus episodes, right? It was a very long running show on TLC. Okay. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I watched maybe a couple episodes, but this was like back in 28, 2008, 2010. This show was boring to me. I believe it started with 17 kids and counting. So this was a family that very much believed in Christian values and wanted to bring their ministry up to public TLC mainstream media, right? Before they were approached by Discovery Health, Mr. Bob, Jim Bob over here, Michelle Duggar's husband, the man over here sitting with her, he had done some runs in the Senate. He wanted to be elected. He wanted to be kind of like this leader, right? Especially in conservative family, his own values. He wanted to bring that up to the table. So he ran for Senate, didn't really make it through. It sounded like that kind of caught the attention of various people in the media, and so then he was contacted by Discovery Health because they wanted to do a little kind of like series on the family. They had several children at that time. I mean, they had a big family, and so they wanted to kind of showcase that. But that's kind of where we get the sense in the first episode of how things got started. What was really valuable to me and what we really have to understand is who Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar are, right? That is where I had a lot of my red flags at, okay? So the first and the second episode starts by giving us a sense of familial Christian values. It gives us this sweet, innocent relationship between Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar. And Michelle Duggar talks about how Jim Bob uh, saved her life, basically. Jim Bob led her to God. I mean, she had a 4-hour conversation, okay? 4-hour conversation, and it was so impactful where Jim Bob kind of talked about, Christianity and Jesus. Here's Michelle Duggar, this former cheerleader. She was the woman of, woman of the world, had dated, right? She was 16 at the time as she met Jim Bob. And in that 4-hour conversation, she just describes this as a pivotal moment in her life when it came to meeting Jim Bob and having that 4-hour conversation. And for those that don't understand, pivotal moments, think of, I've had pivotal moments in my life. What have been your pivotal moments? Think of those times in your life where you've had to sit there and make some really uh, big decisions about your life. Okay. Think about, like, I don't know. Some of it might be marriage. Some of it might be career, religious beliefs, decisions, pivotal moments. That could be how that would be described for Michelle Duggar, that this was kind of like the moment where she got on her knees and she said, I'm giving my life to Lord Jesus Christ. And that is how she was. She was shortly married after that moment. I mean, she was 16 when she met Jim Bob, and she was married at 17, and Jim Bob was 19. Excuse me, Michelle was 17, Jim Bob was 19 years old. So that kind of tells you a little bit of like how that relationship maneuvered, and it sounds like within a short, maybe about a year, if not less, they were married. Okay. So in that right there, you would think, somebody that's, that would kind of give me some red flags, but not really. Because how do I say this? I couldn't help but think about my own upbringing, right? My parents were also teenagers when they married. They ran away together. Okay. My dad was actually a little bit older than my mom, right? And so she also had that pivotal moment in that time, where she had to make a decision, and she did it. She was not old enough to make those decisions, but she made them, right? So that was a very young marriage. And so coming from a family, right, with people getting married very young, that was a huge thing for me to kind of understand. Like, I understand it because even culturally, that is okay, believe it or not. Yes. Yes. And I mean, some of these are you shout out to SWC says, I hate making important choices. You know what? Some of them are good and some of them are not. But that is the conflict with me when I was watching some of this. I said sometimes there are cultural components that lead individuals to marry young. And to me, it is not to say this is wrong, because I who's going to say that, right? We don't really know what those cultural aspects can be that would lead people to make those decisions. But Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar married very young. Okay, and they had this moment. They had their kids very young. They talk about this time in their marriage where she got pregnant with her oldest child, Josh, who clearly has a lot of controversy behind him. He's got these what is it, child pornography charges now. So that's a whole different area of this animal. But um, she has this, Josh, and then she decides to get on birth control. And it was during birth control that she and Bob alleged that she had a miscarriage. So that this birth control led her to do that, or led something for that to happen. And that was, again, another pivotal moment decision where they decided, you know what, we're going to pray and we're going to ask for forgiveness because of this. And so then from there on out, they made the decision to say, God is going to give us however many children he's going to give us, because children are equated to blessings, right? And so that was kind of like the okay for them to keep having children. And so they did. When the show started, I believe it started at 17 and counting, and then it went up to 19 and counting. And I don't know if they had, I mean, I haven't kept track, but in the show itself, I mean, it was very much like this idea or this facade of how you would want the family to be, the family lifestyle. Very well behaved kids. Mom is, very well mannered, right? She doesn't yell, although she was a former cheerleader. She doesn't yell, nothing frustrates her. And there is a system that they have in place, almost like organized towels, if I can describe it, you know. Organized towels, there's a system to organizing, there's a system to folding clothes. I would probably equate it to that. So, and then it begins, right? From there, all of the children, they made a decision that all of the children would be homeschooled, and they allowed them little access to entertainment and movies and television, which is a little odd to me given the fact that they allowed production and TV crew into the home, but they wouldn't allow them to see what was out, right? That was interesting, and I always felt kind of like that was a little bit off, even watching the show back then. But like I said, to me, 19 Kids and Counting wasn't a show that I would necessarily say, "Ooh, I'm ready for the next episode. I can't wait to watch it." No, no. I was more into like For the Love of Ray J, Love and Hip Hop. That's what I was watching because, I was like, I got so much going on. And then that was kind of like VH1 was more my thing than TLC. I'm just being honest. These family shows kind of really didn't do it for me, right? I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it, and I've said it. Okay, I owned it. That being said, though, yes, there was no mainstream media. There was nothing like that. The other thing that really struck me, right? So then you have Jim Bob Duggar, who kind of presented as a loving, unassuming father, right? He's the patriarch. But he has this long history in politics, right? Um, and he's held a lot of seats in public office too, believe it or not. And I wasn't even aware of that. So it always so when I was kind of looking into the first episode, it kind of struck me, and I'm sure that it struck a lot of people, that there was a political agenda behind them being on TV. They aligned themselves, okay, with Bill got who is it? Oh my gosh, why can I say his name? Goddard? It's not Goddard. Why can't I say his name? They aligned himself with Bill Goddard. Okay. And even that was interesting because even this man has a huge history, right? He's kind of like the what is it? How would you describe it? Very much biblical teachings. He came from a dynasty. I think that's the better way to put it. He came from a dynasty of just this Christian value, religious, patriarch type of value. And so then it was through Bill that he basically started the Institute in Basic Life Principles. Right? It was through that they were able to kind of align themselves with the Duggars. And so then here's the Duggars on this TV show while also following Bill's biblical teachings, right? And they were very conservative. He was a very conservative figure in the religious community. What really got to me, though, fundamentalist, thank you, fundamentalist Christian teaching. Thank you, my love. What really got to me about this is the fact that, like, this man, and I hate even saying this because I'm not like, you don't have to have kids to have a good sense of how to raise children, right? But how, and I do wonder, right? Like, how is it that somebody like this man who is coming from this dynasty doesn't have kids, doesn't have a family, and yet finds himself being in this like position to essentially dictate. Now, this is why I have a hard time with this because also as a Catholic myself, priests aren't allowed to marry, right? They are they are the essentially the tools, right, that God uses, and again, every teaches on what their beliefs. So I can understand that piece. But specifically to Bill, he was very much willing and the leader, essentially, the leader of it all. Okay. And then after Bill, it was God, right? And so then he's kind of receiving these, messages, and views and principles are coming from Bill to trickle down to this whole family, right? It is interesting to me to see that somebody like this, who has now been accused of sexual assault, okay, um, and the victims in this docuseries speak this, but the biblical trainings and teachings of this, it is so, it sucks to be a woman and be part of this. I'll just say that much. It sucks so much so. And let me go to these slides real quick, okay? This just gives you an idea of what Mr. Bill sees, right? So you have the umbrella of protection, Christ's authority to forgive sins passed down to the pastors. So Christ, this is the umbrella of protection of what is it? Umbrella of protection, right? Christ is up on top, and he rains down to these pastors, and he gives the pastors the authority to forgive all. All right. Then the pastors protect the church and oversees husbands. Remember, this is a patriarchy. This is a male-led belief systems. Okay, so then the husband, protects the family and provides for the family, and the wife is the children and manages the home. That's it. That's it. Now, from there, in this little covering thing, right, as you can see in the other drawing right over here. Oh, can you guys see my mouse on the screen? I don't think you can. But from here, you have what it protects, right? Protective coverings. And then anything else after that, any rebellious is witchcraft and Satan. And those under the authority are always going to be protective. So you always want to be under the authority. Yes, control, control, control. And that is the key word that was constantly used throughout this docuseries. Protection and authority. Authority. And as somebody, and I know a lot of you guys are here as well, that you would probably agree with me, right? Because we tend to question rules, because we're skeptics, because I'm a skeptic as well, right? As much as I might have a religious belief, right? I'm very much a skeptic. I'm a skeptic of that. And I'm a skeptic of my own faith. And I'm a skeptic of the things that I consume. And I know a lot of you guys are skeptics as well. So I'm just thinking in my mind, right? When you're ingrained in this and you're a victim of this, right? There is no boundaries at all. So when they kept saying authority, 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 and this is how you exercise authority, and this is how you discipline your kids, and this is what you do, and here's the blanket training, which is a sense of child abuse, right? There really was no way, like there is no boundaries. There is no self as a woman. There is no exactly. Essentially, Mandy, thank you for saying that. Mandy said it best. He said, essentially, Goddard believed that there's no real equality in life. Authority is key. Which then made me wonder, well, okay, is this like through men and women? Because then it kind of made me think about race. It made me think about privilege. It made me think about money. It made me think about different things. You got to understand, because I was thinking about Mr. Jim Bob and how quickly he went to the Senate, right? And I'm just thinking in my mind, well, dang, like, how was there, like, was he just given that opportunity? How did this happen? Well, no, the wife took care of the kids, and she was having, she was just like, I hate to say it this way, but it seemed like her only purpose, and that is absolutely fine for women that have chosen to do that, right? The only purpose, that you have is, you're raising your kids. I'm myself have chosen right now to raise my children, right? But I'm a career person. So something like this wouldn't work for me. You know what I'm saying? Is that just, for a lot of us here, and also a lot of skeptics as well? Let me read some of these comments. Tina says, Rabbit, I was 19 and my husband was 20 when we were married. Thankfully, we're still married and we are Christians and our marriage is nothing like their family. Perfect. And Tina, let me tell you this. My parents were married very young and they're still married, going on almost 40 plus years at this point. Okay. Uh, they're still married till this day. Catholic Church, many, many years. And to me, it's like there are certain aspects that I love about Catholicism, right? But there's certain things that I'm like, I'm a skeptic and I got to work on this. And I'm a recovering Catholic, because I do say it all the time. And I say it to myself a lot. But that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I'm assuming that there's a really good balance between you and your husband, as well as the marriage of my parents, who they've been married for a long time, right? And I appreciate that. So yeah, I get it. But some of us aren't like this. Catholic, I don't know. some Catholicism, some of it, some Mormonism. Everybody comes from a different type of religious belief, and there might be some things out here like this, but I don't recognize it. You know what I'm saying? I don't recognize it. You say I have a quite few friends that did the blanket training. Now I know what was involved in it. It's horrific, and they followed this teaching, and that's just sad. And that is just sad. But that was there were so many parts to this, right? But that was just one of them, right? That just kind of really got to me. But anyways, so you have this man, this man, and they're following these teachings, and essentially, I don't know if in the initial couple of episodes of 17 kids and counting or 19 kids and counting, we really got a sense that there was a push for this agenda, right? And that there was an alignment. So this was what really confused me, is this piece of like, all right, like, did a lot of us pick up from that? I didn't watch the show enough to say this is a huge fundamentalist Christian group and this is a television show. However, there were some YouTubers here that picked up on it, okay? And shout out to Fundy Friday, right? Because I remember when I would watch, like, I would watch some of the 19 kids in 20s, whatever, and then I would watch some of her shows and she was doing her makeup, and I would hear something of what she was saying, and then a lot of her content became kind of exposing the fundamentalist stuff. But this was prior to these allegations that came out about this family. This was prior to us knowing that, not only did this family fail these 19 kids, okay, the network did as well, because these contracts, this is what I'm talking about, and I'm gonna call this out right now. We have a lot of families here on YouTube, like YouTube family vloggers, okay, and I was thinking about this too. I see it with the, what is it, Daughtery Dozen. You have all these other YouTubers that are kind of family, and even these reality shows that are familiar. And it makes me wonder. I've always questioned this. When you put your kids, I can understand if it's in a network where they might get a percentage of something, or there might be some insurance involved for them as well, because you're putting them up for a job. But then when it comes to YouTubers and their family vlogging, why aren't these kids also receiving, like, are they receiving something by participating in some of this stuff, especially when people are signing things for them, or they're not even asking, hey son, hey daughter, can I put you on camera today? I'd like to know. Very much. Very much so. And then I'm hearing that some of these people adopt kids to showcase them and then return them like it's like a shirt from Marshalls or Kmart or whatever. Like you're returning merchandise. What are you doing? So I find the whole thing problematic. Exploitation, yeah. Exploitation. And so now you have, Jill, one of the 19, one of the oldest ones, coming out and breaking down about the fact that not only was she not paid, okay? Yeah, at some point, I promise you, SW, not only was she not paid, uh, um, the network didn't take care of her. Her father didn't take care of her. Nobody really took care of her, but they all took care of them. How does that work? Dad took all the money. And the slap in the face was when Jill and her husband, okay, and I'm going to switch over here. This is Jill and her husband, and Jill was the one speaking out with her husband. The slap in the face, the one that this is what really hurt me. They had to negotiate while they were in Panama, right? Because they were done with the show. Number one, she didn't want to be on air, having her child out there, right? She had already been exposed, and there was so much going on with her, and she just kind of like wanted to move on from this. She was, Josh was already in trouble. All this shit was coming out with Bill. All this stuff was coming out. So Jill is kind of like, I just wanted to move on, right? And so then The slap in the face, finding out that the very parents that are supposed to protect you from harm, right? These guys, okay? These ones right here, the mild and the mild voice folks, right? You know, the ones that can do no wrong, and when we're teaching our kids about God, you sign these contracts for them. And you're having a phone conversation with her husband about, can I pay you $10 an hour? Is that what you want? Is that what you want? These people are shit for that. The network is another thing, because they weren't there. They weren't in the market to protect them. The network couldn't even cover Jill's delivery bill, right? But that really just made me so sad that I said, wait a minute, that's your dad. And you made him, I don't know how much money. You know what was so crazy to me? There was in episode 1, there was a professor who made the comparison between the Kardashians, right? Because at the time, the Kardashians were also what, in 2007, 2008, kind of like the hottest show at the time. I bet you those Kardashians individually made more money than these girls, right? And even though the Kardashians were as crazy back then, right? You had mama manager right there, Kris Jenner, and all of her kids. I mean, they were exploiting what's her name, Courtney, going to prison at the time, right? They were doing, I think I've watched one season of the Kardashians when they first started, and then I was done, right? You know, she was in with the shit, but at the very least, they got paid. These girls, their children, their very own children, did not. For what, 7 years? For 7 years? And I can only imagine the religious and emotional manipulation that would happen day by day, especially when you're having to follow some umbrella religious beliefs. Like Jill said, I couldn't always say no, because guess what? It's Christ, the pastors, the husband, and the wife. How do you say no to your parents? And you know what? I definitely related to that, because guess what? Even as an adult child, right? Like, or even as an adult, when you have to say no to your parent, like, no, I hated it, because it goes back to the 10 Commandments. You shall obey your parents. And I remember, I'll never forget, one time I had a conversation with the priest, and I said, what if my parents are wrong about something? It's a little bit different, right? When you're an adult, and you know, you can actually have adult conversations. But you're like, what if my parents are wrong about something? And so I could just imagine the emotional manipulation that is happening with Jill. That happened with Jill when she said, no, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that. Right, Tina? Can you imagine if they seen each other on TV? Like, if they had seen some of the stuff that was going on? Obey but not love. In my opinion, the SOBs owe the money or trust funds, right? They owe. They owe. Exactly, Marcy. How did even Michelle forge the kid's signature after they turned 18? These people wanted to keep it going. They wanted it. They needed it. Do you understand that there is a sense of comfort? There is a lifestyle that's afforded. I'm just thinking, like, even at the with the Kardashians, when they don't want to keep it going, you had Mr. What, Rob Kardashian, the other one, right? And not to, you know, these two shows are completely different, right? But when Rob Kardashian said, I'm not part of this, you know, shit show anymore, he made an effort to get himself out of there, right? He wasn't in there anymore, right? He literally made himself out of there, and he said, I'm not going to be part of this. And you don't see him in any more seasons. You don't see him, right? Whereas all these kids did not have a choice. Mom signed the contract. Again, falling under this whole umbrella thing. There was a huge agenda and push. And you know what? Even though I'm a huge believer in God, I know this isn't of God, right? This can't be of God, because even in the most places, right, where you think that position and power wouldn't exist, that people would have your best interests at heart, a priest, a deacon, whatever it may be, those people are also very much human, right? And not, out of touch with doing something wrong to anybody. So I love my faith. I'm sure they probably love their faith too, but they were just as wrong. And that, what they did right here to these victims, was not of God. It cannot be. It can't be. Because they twisted this shit. You signed for your kids. And now, right? With this docuseries being out, what kills me, what kills me is, even now, like, there is no wrongdoing with the Duggars, right? With Michelle and Jim Bob. There is no wrongdoing. They cannot do anything wrong in this situation because they are the victims. Let's be clear. Let's be very clear. They responded to the docuseries, right? And they put themselves in the victims in that place. Even when the allegations, what was it, about 8 years ago, of Josh Duggar that came out, right, about him touching 5 girls, right? And Mr. Jim Bob was very quick to tell people, that this happened when he was underage and he was a minor juvenile and somebody leaked our records. It was an immediate response, and then followed by the Jill and Jessa Duggar interview to say, we are not victims, this happened, and that is okay, and we apologize, I forgive them, it's all good, right? They're very quick at turning that on. It makes you wonder how often they've had to do that. How often have they had to turn that on, right? Because, hey, man, regardless, what I see here is nothing but greed. These parents, the network, and all the adults around them, greed. Greed. They like the money. They like the attention. Exactly. It didn't make it okay. And in some states, even juveniles can get charged as well. So I found that to be the most craziest response, even looking back 8 years ago. So even now, they also feel like they've been victimized by this situation. Stargazer Mom says, Jim Bob also one of the biggest narcissists also. He has to be the center of attention. He had the family living. Yes, he did. And TLC paid them 90% of the cost building the big house. Yes. Yes. There was a part. This is a very interesting part. And I felt some type of way about this, okay? So I found it very interesting that Jill's family, or not Jill's family, I'm sorry, Michelle Duggar's family, they weren't really outspoken in this docuseries. We saw a lot of Jim Bob's family, right? Jim Bob's family was very outspoken. You had his sister, who was outspoken. You also had his niece, Amy. So this is Deanne and Amy right here on the picture next to them. And Deanne played the I was very surprised, and I didn't know, and I was supportive of them being on TV, but I didn't know about the huge secret that was happening. I didn't know, right? Amy was also there, and she kind of gave her perspective. She said, I grew up very different. I grew up, I dated boys. My first kiss was in the 8th grade. I watched, I had posters of Jonathan Taylor Thomas, very much teenage, a different vibe than her cousins, right? And so then she would go over to their cousins and she'd be like, wow, this is, they're very strict, this is a different lifestyle, right? They didn't even have televisions, so if there was a storm happening, they couldn't really know. My mom had to call them, right, on the phone to find out what was going on and whatnot. But there was something that was said, and shout out to my Discord group, because I had messaged them, especially my mods. I said, some is bothering me in episode 2 specifically. And it was at the 46-minute mark, episode 2. Remember the narrative that was given. that Jessa and Jill did not know that they were touched. They didn't know that they were touched, right? And I have the interview here, and we can watch it. They went on the Kelly files, and they basically said we didn't know what had happened. Jim Bob also says they didn't know what had happened. They didn't know they were touched. Essentially, this kind of came out, and there was a report written, and they just, this kind of happened, and they took Josh Duggar to treatment at a facility that was run by the IBLP. Okay, accredited, questionable. He had to go out there and build houses, and be closer to Mr. Bill, the one that was later accused of sex assault. And then, okay, yeah. This got to me. I picked up on this, and you guys might have to go watch it again in this piece. Let me know your thoughts on this and put it in the comments if you're watching the replay. Let me tell you this. The officer that they took Josh to was later charged with child pornography too. You remember that? Skip to my loop. Well, let me tell you what happened on episode 2. All right, where they're putting everything together and everything's kind of happening. Episode 2, at the 46-minute mark, go exactly to the 46-minute mark, and Amy said something that I said, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. She says in this interview, Jill has strength and tenacity. She is the one that really did something to Josh. She hit Josh the day that he was going to touch her. So I sat there and I said, well, wait a minute. I must be hearing it. Because I thought Jim Bob said that the girls didn't know they were touched. And Jill also confirmed that we didn't know we were touched. But in episode 2, Amy said that Jill has strength and tenacity. She's the one that really did something about Josh and hit him the night that he was supposed to touch her. Jill was known as the family snitch because she told on. Okay, so here's my deal. Peekaboo. So when they went into Kelly, they clearly were not being truthful there, which I get it. They were protecting their brother. I get it, and so were the Duggars, right? But it made me wonder if these girls, the way in which the sleeping arrangement was happening, how often did this happen? Did this happen one time? She hit him. There is more to this. That's what I said. They said there's more to the story. There's more to the story. They were made to do that interview. Absolutely. Amy has always told this story, and I believe her. I mean, it's a tough story. I just couldn't. I couldn't. There was something that happened with at least one of the girls, the laundry room, while they were awake. Okay. And I'm looking at these comments. It's disgusting that Jim Bob chose Josh over his daughters that were being hurt. But Tina, it's part of their umbrella. Why wouldn't they choose the girls over the boys? I mean, they're conditioned. You know what I'm saying? They're conditioned to do so, right? That's the trouble with common sense. The moment you have some, you just end up teaching it to those without any. It's hard. Hey, Fairy, I believe her too. Okay. So that's the piece that I said, well, look, I'm going to tell you guys something. Look, I'm having a hard time when I heard, and I wasn't back, and when these allegations came out, 8 years ago, I wasn't into the show like that. I heard about the allegations. I saw some of the stuff. I was disgusted, I'll be honest with you, with some of the way in which the YouTubers were reporting these allegations, because there was no, there's a difference if you report an allegation versus trying to describe that. I was disgusted by that. I'll be honest with you. I was like, what the hell? It was, I'm just going to say that. And so, I mean, I did hear different things, but I wasn't a YouTuber then. So it did kind of make me wonder, well, damn, okay, all right, okay. So where do we go from here? So then you have this sense, right, that clearly in the first and second episode that there was more to the story and that the abuse was prevalent and kind of the foundation of the abuse and how women are conditioned to be of a certain way. You have to dress a certain way. There's certain things that you can and can't do. And I can't believe I didn't include it here, but let me go ahead and put it up on another slide over here. Okay. Let's add that right now. Um, one of the pictures that I have here. This amazed me. I didn't know that this was a thing. We're gonna add it right now. But this whole little like slut shaming that was happening in this situation, like it was like ingrained slut shaming. You know, this idea that your attire provoked a rape. Um eye trap. That's what they call it. They called it the eye trap. Let me pull that picture because they have it on the website from the recovery group. Oh, I found it right here. Here it is. Let's talk about this picture right here because it is so disturbing how all of this. Um, let me here it is. Can you identify the eye traps in the pictures? What could you do to alter them? So, okay. You identify the eye trap. You figure out how to fix it so you don't get raped. That's what I picked up on that, right? Your makeup, your skirt, your see-through blouse. You figure this out, right? I couldn't agree with you more. I'm sorry. I saw some clips and I'm just telling you, that was disgusting. I couldn't. Just another troll. You're absolutely correct on that. There was an exploitation, and to me, that I get that these people are reality stars, but like to actually describe somebody's violation, and then you're doing the hand motion. Yeah, okay. That like please. So here says somebody says in here, the person that provided this, as best as I can remember, the eye traps are one, see-through lace on shoulder arms, two, long necklaces and design that draw the eyes away from the face, drop waist that also draws the eyes from the face, slit in the skirt that draws the eyes from the leg, and the V-neck shirt, drooping bow draw. What is it? Bow draw the eye downward. Okay. Pattern stockings distract from the face and draw attention to the legs. The V-shaped collar might have been an offender too. Lord heaven. So all of this, God forbid you wink. God, I mean, listen, I have skirts that are shorter than this. I have blouses that are a lot more revealing than this. Straight, I couldn't. I couldn't. Yes. Like they made the girls, that's what really got to me. So when I say, well, but this happened, this conditioning wasn't just for the girls. This was for the men too. Because there wasn't up there was a specific scene where you it is so sad to me. The girls are covering the TV, right? They're covering it and they're saying there was a key word. The key word was Nike. Nike. And that was meant for them, that was a code word for them to look down because something unmodest is happening in the TV or somebody is showing too much, right? You're already perpetuating this when they're young, right? How I I would wear all of these outfits. I mean, I'm just gonna say I wouldn't. It's not my style, but my boys wouldn't necessarily be thinking of me in any other way, only as their mother, who happens to be wearing a long necklace, right? Uh, um, a dress, stockings, cute little stockings. I got shorter skirts than number 4. Anybody else have shorter skirts than number 4? Let me know. Let me know. Right, right. And that is crazy to me. That is crazy. So my husband, that's the other thing too. And I mean that gets into the third episode. But that is crazy. Great grandma, child grooming 101. So you're saying that because this is them being indecent, I'm going to cover this up. But who's being indecent? Who thought of the idea that this was indecent? Right? Right. Well, I would hope so too. But any boys. I'm just saying. Listen. I try to dress modest, but my personal choice is it is the perpetrator's fault. Exactly, Tina. Exactly. I barely wear anything in my house. Y'all don't TMI me in the chat, please. All right? Don't TMI me in the chat. I listen. I know. I know. Religious abuse completely. I truly believe. Hear me when I say this. I've had conflicts within my own religion, right? I go back and forth and I'm conflicted, but I'm a very spiritual person as well, right? So I know that there's other things in life besides my little brain and my little thought process and what I say here, right? Even everybody else in here, we are just one little spectacle here. But I just want to be part of whatever institution that I am, that I'm able to challenge it. If I don't like something in my religion, guess what? That's okay. I don't like it. And nobody, not a priest, not anybody's going to tell me different. If I want to wear a skirt to church, I'm going to wear a skirt to church. Right? But this I felt very sad. I said, you guys have conditioned these children, not just the women, but the boys too, to think that there is something indecent happening in front of you. Therefore, you need to cover your eyes versus it's just a woman wearing a blouse, right? It's just a girl wearing a lace shirt, right? We got to talk about these two right here. Now, I was a little bit, and this might go into my conversation about YouTubers who cover this a little bit more. Um, Help me understand this, okay? So my understanding is that this is Jim Holt and Bobby Holt. And so they know the Duggars kind of growing up as kind of children and whatnot, or maybe Jim might have been like a child friend of Jim Bob. And they kind of grew up with each other. And it was Josh Duggar that wanted to court his daughter at some point. So there's a connection there, right? The docuseries gets released and this man gets a restraining order put on him with the wife over here, right? And I know I did see a little bit of what Katie Joy said. She said something to the effect of like she would not participate in a docuseries knowing that Jim Holt was perpetuating abuse because he's a known abuser, because she's got sources and they're tight-knit sources. My goodness, they're tight. Tight. Sources don't lie. I don't see a receipt of anything, but sources don't lie. And you know how we do it in true crime, right? We true crimers, we ask for receipts. We want to see receipts, right? I don't know how you would show receipts of this. I'm be honest with you. But there have been, I guess, allegations. It's also been said that Bobby has lied and covered up for her husband and the abuse. People have said different things. Christopher Fan, and then people have said that Miss Katie Joy over here, Katie of the Joy, you guys know I'm not a fan, okay? Also, they didn't need her, but she is kind of running amok and in the name and saying her stance as to why she didn't want to participate in this and how she messaged producers, and then she had an issue with Amy Duggar as well. And I don't know the ins and outs. Here's the deal: when you blog, like, why am I getting in the in all that when I could just be blogging about the different things that are happening, right? So then she also got outed by Jim Holt and all this other stuff happening. Let's not be hypocrites, okay? If you're saying, I'm so glad that Amazon gave these victims a platform, then that's what it is. Is this man a perpetrator of something? Potentially. Did Bobby cover up for something? Potentially. Were there other adults covering up for stuff? Potentially. Very much so, right? Did an institution, a religious institution, cover for all the crimes? Did a network cover for all these crimes? Potentially. There's probably stuff out there that would support that. Absolutely. But we also don't know how ingrained or how victimized Bobby, and let me point this way, Bobby is as well. She might be just as much of a victim. Lady has what, over 11 kids? 11 kids? She kind of followed this. It made me wonder, well, she put in restraining orders, right? Was she also a victim as well? Can't you guys see that even those that cover up can also be victims as well? Even adult people can also be victims as well. We don't know. We don't know. Exactly. If you're a true advocate. Now, I'm not an expert. Look, my blog, and let me be very clear, I am not an expert in fundamentalist, religious, yada, yada, yada. I'm not. I'm not. I'm just a rabbit that went to social work school and got a graduate degree and worked in, government for X amount of years and worked with victims of crime and worked with victims. I'm just somebody that kind of understands and can see between a little bit that even through this, I'm supporting my husband and sitting here, I could see that there might be something more to this story. Let me tell you what it looks like. Okay. She said when it came to them, I think it was like part 2 or part 1 in that interview, right? He says, this is my wife. She was 14 at the time, but she was very well developed. I'm a married rabbit. Okay. We got an age difference in our time. All right. I'm just telling you. But his, his, and if you notice the language that is said, he says, I fell in love with her. She was 14 at the time, and I am this old, and but she was developed. That was enough for me to say, okay, we don't know what this dynamic is, right? She could very well be a victim as well as somebody that's covering up. It can happen, right? We don't know. So being a little bit compassionate about what is happening would be wise, right? Now, yes, she did. She did. She had to correct him. She had to correct him. But that seems to be the theme here, right? They married young, and like I said, some of us culturally we come, from cultures that some of it is okay, right? Because of the way in which it's a line. Hispanic, Mexican cultures, myself included, we come from cultures where it's not seemed as this because there's a religious aspect to it. And I'm not saying that that is okay. I am saying it truly depends. Give me one sec, guys. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, let me know your thoughts. I don't know who this is. Let me block. Give me one sec, y'all. I always get one or two trolls. Seems like he's trying to make us think that he didn't do anything wrong with just being a younger teenager. Always excuse for predators in the name of religion. Yep. Um, so we really don't really know. You know what I'm saying? We really, really, really don't really know what's tea. Spiritual is not religious. I would agree. I would agree. No worries, no worries. I just thought that was funny. Okay. Um, and I would expect to troll one or two here. But I do feel like if you're for victims, you allow them to have their platform and you allow them to express and say what they need to say. We don't know what this victimology looks like. To me, this was very indicative of that coming from being able to assess that. You could kind of tell right away that this was her maybe her first love. 11 children. We have to understand something. For women, the brain works a little bit different. We develop a lot younger. Yes, we do. And we also tend to lose a lot of our brain cells when we're pregnant, right? And so while we're healing from one pregnancy to the next, especially with 11 kids, you have to understand that that makes us susceptible for a lot of different things, right? A lot of trauma. So this is why I feel like we need to be very, very much careful. Yes, babies having babies. Babies having babies. Absolutely. And this is what we saw here. Very much so. It was the trend. So to me, I don't know what the dirt is on Mr. Jim Holt. Quite honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Yes, can somebody drop the link? Thank you so much, Nature Lover. um we really don't know, right? So we have to be a little bit compassionate. I don't know what those conversations look like. We have to be a little bit more compassionate about it, in my opinion. In order, what's the saying that Sean Davy Way says? You get more honey with bees. Sometimes that works in various situations. you know I meant he was trying to make the fact that she was only 14 okay because she seemed older. Yes, Tina, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, my love. Thank you for saying that. I try. I did tweeze him today. My God, can you imagine if Michelle had postpartum? Is she well? And that's Christopher. How do we know she didn't? We know. I mean, come on now. 19 kids and counting, and counting. You gonna be the vessel for all these blessings? Listen, I love my children. Okay, they are a blessing, but they're mine, right? And they drive me insane. And this is why I was like, some of this don't, like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me, girl? Like, really? No postpartum? No depression there? No time to heal from one after another? It's in the description box, by the way. Yep, you get more honey with bees. Compassion. Be compassionate. Be compassionate. You never know. Um, you never know what somebody could be going through. Okay. That being said, though, that I want you those. So we're gonna do another part to this because we want to finish the last two. And then whatever else I forgot to cover here, we'll finish it on the last two as well. I just, my goodness, there was so much to this. The other point that I wanted to make, and I thought this was very important. Um, what is it called? Parentification. That spoke to me. Being parentified. Okay, parentified. Sorry, I said it wrong. Being parentified is a real thing. Okay. I suffer from it. I still do, believe it or not. As the oldest, it's expected, right? And so then as a female, I kind of saw a little, it impacts you. You how do I say this? And for those that don't understand what the meaning is, it's I'll give it to you guys right now, but it's basically when you're pushing your kids into the care of parenting children, right? And so you take on that role, and that's a hefty role to take on, right? You got to be very mindful of that. So this idea that you have a buddy, okay? A child sleeps with you, you're 11 years old, like they pointed that out. That's like, that can be seen in different ways. There are cultures like myself that you take care of your older siblings. You don't have a childhood. I didn't have much of a childhood because I spent a significant time of my childhood taking care of those siblings of mine, right? So that is a very huge thing that I noticed here. And I said, yeah, like, but that was intense. There was no childhood there. There was no childhood. It was, all right, you're 11, 12 years old, take care of your sibling, and then you meet your significant other. You start immediately courting. You're signing contracts for TLC. Okay. We got to get this going. We got your fraudulent signature there, and then it's off to the television, and then you got this big wedding happening. Everybody's waiting for it, right? In part, what is it, 3 and 4? I want to get into a little bit more about Josh Duggar and those allegations. We're going to get into those a little bit more. Okay. I want to look at it a little bit more and hear different sides to it as well. I want to thank everybody for joining me on the first and second part. Make sure that you join me to the third and fourth part, because I think it's going to be pretty intense. If this was intense, the next parts are going to be intense. Okay. And I will try to grab as many screen grabs and stuff like that I can, and take some notes. If you feel like there is something specific that you want me, yes, it did. You want me to cover about this docuseries, shoot me an email. Let me put my email here. Okay. Hold up, y'all. Let me put my email here so you guys can shoot me an email and let me know. Right here. And let me know your thoughts about other things that you're like, Rabbit, look into this, Rabbit, look into that. But again, in order for you to kind of get the sense of what's going on, you would need to watch some of that docuseries. It's on Amazon Prime. Make sure you guys check it out. I have to head out because I got to go tend to Baby Bunny. I might be live later on because we got to talk about a true crime case. So make sure you guys hit that notification. All right, Baby Bunny, and that like button. I'm out for now, and I'll be back, guys. Bye.